Hey y'all, it's Laura and I'm back with my Double Dare You challenge for the month of March, and this is Christina's challenge that I am taking on, and she asked us to make a layout where we're creating our own background with either mixed media or stamping. And you may know that I don't do a lot of mixed media on my layouts because I am a huge pattern paper fan and I would prefer to play with pattern paper than mixed media, but I am ready for this challenge and decided to go all out and create a very elaborate stamped background. Now, I showed you the 4 Catherine Pooler inks that I'm going to be using to create this background and the L Studio heart stamps that I am going to be using as well. Now, the colors I used were Orange Twist, Be Mine, Fiesta Blue, and Rockin' Red. So those are the 4 Catherine Pooler inks. One of the things you should know about Catherine Pooler inks is they are dye inks, and I have found they sometimes show up a different color on different types of cardstock. Now, I am using Vicki Boutin's foundation paper because it handles inks and watercolors and all of that really beautifully and doesn't warp as much as regular cardstock or even other mixed media style cardstocks. I really like Vicki Boutin's foundation paper. So on this paper, the Fiesta Blue came out more like a denim color, which is interesting. And that was fine for my photos, but it wasn't what I was expecting because the container shows a very teal blue. And when I tested it on another piece of cardstock, it was teal blue. So keep that in mind. Always test your inks on the type of cardstock you're going to be using before doing this kind of full background style of stamping. Now, I am doing each of the sizes of hearts in each color. So 4 of the large, 4 of the medium, 4 of the small, and just kind of bouncing back and forth. So you see I've done the red and the orange on the left, so I did red and orange on the right. And I'm going to come in with the blue and the pink and put them on the left since I've already done them on the right. And then when I get to the smaller size, I'll just kind of sprinkle them around. And this was a lot of fun to do. I wasn't really sure what shape I was going for, but decided a bit of a diagonal flow would be nice, something a little bit different and make it a little bit interesting, and have my hearts kind of shaped out away from the photos. And the reason for that is because the photos are going to sit in the middle, and so it's kind of look like love is just exploding out of these photos. And when you see them a little better, you'll understand why. And so I'm just going through each of the inks, adding a heart around the layout. Now, I did a lot of stamping on this background, and I wanted to try out a few different techniques, play with a few different types of stamps, and also create an exciting burst behind my photos. And so I started with these larger ones. I always encourage you to start with larger stamps, larger embellishments, larger mixed media items. Start with your biggest items first, and then you can squeeze in the smaller bits around those larger items. It's always easier to start that way. So that's what I am doing. So now that I've got pretty much all of my stamps on, I was just looking for where this last little orange heart should go. Just there. That's where the opening was. I'm not a perfect stamper. As you saw, I've had to restamp several of these. Totally fine. There's a few that never quite came out. That's okay too. Don't expect perfection in stamping. It's not going to happen. And so now I've got these tiny little stamps, which have a bunch of different heart shapes in super mini size. Also from L Studio. They're from a larger pack, but I cut them out so I could use them for just this type of stamping with sprinkly bits, adding around my page. I have used these on the channel before, so you have seen them probably. And I really enjoy them, again, starting with the largest of the teeny tiny hearts, moving down to the smallest, and just sort of randomly placing them around the clusters that I've created to add a small bit of detailing. I decided to do these in black to create a stark contrast to my very bright, bold colors. And I think this really helped tie in some other elements that I'll add in later. This little bit of black kind of pops around the page, but doesn't distract from the larger, bolder hearts. And I think that that's kind of important because adding too many colors to your background is going to take away a lot of attention from your photo. Now, I've purposely picked colors that complement my photos quite nicely, and so adding in this little bit of black around the page just kind of softens those bright colors just a little bit by bringing in that black contrast. It kind of calms everything down a little bit. But at the same time, you're not going to calm down that orange. That orange is a prominent color in my photos, and that's one of the reasons I chose to use it. And it is bold, but that's okay because some of it's going to get covered up by my photos and embellishments and will fade a little bit nicely into the background. The other part of this is that I'm not going to be adding a lot of pattern paper to this layout because that would just be introducing more and more color. And at this point, there's already a lot going on. So I decided I'm doing all of this stamping, and I have these lovely roller stamps pulled out in my stash kit, which is what I'm using for this layout. I might as well pull out the roller stamps. And I love the texture this added to the layout. Adding in some shapes, I have some arrows and some doodly lines and be happy and some very positive focused little word phrases to add around the hearts. And I think this step took it from this is cute to, oh, I really like this. And I got really excited when I started doing the roller stamping, and you'll see why it goes a bit crazy. I run a bit wild with it and added a lot with the roller stamping. But again, some of it's going to get covered up by the photos, some of it's going to get covered up by the embellishing. And as busy as this background is, it doesn't need a ton of embellishing, but I think you'll see that it's strategic embellishing. So adding more and more roller stamps because you can't get enough of the roller stamping once you get started. And I don't really clean these off, to be honest. I always clean off my acrylic stamps, but these stamps, I just tap them off onto a spare piece of paper, and I find that completely adequate for getting them nice and clean. So don't stress too much with the roller stamps. I don't really feel like you need to clean them other than just stamping them off to get that extra ink off of them. They work just fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and put all of my stamping away and get my photos matted. This is the only pattern paper that is going to go on this page. I did consider using some pocket page cards, but it was just too bright. The colors I had chosen for this month were very, very bright, and I decided I wanted to go with something a little bit more calm, and so I decided to use a scripty paper instead that has several of the colors from the stamping, this one here, to back my photos. They had just a little bit of color, a little bit of interest behind my photos, but they don't create more chaos on top of the busy background. So backing those with this white-based, slightly colored paper just kind of brings your attention into them, but it doesn't clash or compete with the background. And so now that I've got them in place, you can see these are two really cute photos of my son and my daughter. And I have 5 kids. These two are my youngest and middle child, and they are 2 peas in a pod. They absolutely cracked me up how similar they actually are. And they were just cuddled up on the couch, sharing a bowl of popcorn and watching Minecraft videos. And I just thought it was so cute and so spontaneous that they just curl up with their mutual interests of popcorn and Minecraft and just happily sitting next to each other quietly watching videos. And it was just one of those moments that you kind of see out of the corner of your eye and you're like, oh, that's really cute. And so I snuck over and snapped a couple of pictures really quick before Sophia realized what I was doing and tried to flee. I really wanted to use this wonderful acetate piece at the bottom, but I couldn't get it to work with this Simply wood veneer, and it just didn't, it wouldn't fit size-wise. The colors were wonderful. I thought it would tie in beautifully with the stamping color-wise and bring all those colors together, and it did, but it just wasn't fitting on the layout. It just looked awkward no matter where I put it, and because of the shape of the word Simply, it couldn't slide in, tuck in very nicely, and so I abandoned it. Decided instead to glue down my acetate flowers. They're one on either side of the photos with some glossy accents, which shows up mostly clear underneath of acetate, and it is definitely my go-to for acetate. And then I decided that I really needed to rein in a bit of the chaos here. It was looking a bit wild, and I thought it needed a little bit of a boundary. I am a big fan of linear design, and just adding borders like this for me can bring in some of that structure and make me more comfortable with the style I'm working in. And so that's exactly what I'm doing with this black and white striped washi, and I am putting some adhesive double-sided tape underneath of it because I don't trust washi. I've had it peel right off on its own in my albums, and so I always use adhesive underneath of it just to make sure. I did find this little chipboard word phrase and thought that finished off my title quite nicely, and you'll see now with all of that black in my title, having the black ink scattered all around the background really helps to tie that in beautifully. I'm going to use the little scattering puffy stickers on this Felicity Jane sticker sheet, again part of my stash kit, to add some very minor embellishing around the layout. And I did to some extent use these to cover up the stamping errors, if you will, and really was excited to get some of these on the page. Those outline hearts down there I really liked, but they were the wrong colors, and so of course I couldn't tie those in, but those would have been really fun to add in with the stamped solid hearts as well. I am also going to reach for some heart-shaped wood veneer. I'm a big fan of wood veneer, but I haven't been pulling it in to my layouts very much, and so I have been trying to encourage myself mentally, go ahead and pull it out. It sits on my desk for every single layout. I might as well use some of it up, and I'm certainly not going to run out anytime soon. And so I'm adding some little tiny hearts scattered all around the page, just again adding more texture, more interest, more hearts, and I really think adding all these tiny little detail pieces makes that background feel more complete and intentionally designed, even though it was really just me having a bit of stamping fun. So now to tie in the yellow flower acetate I've added to the right of the photos, I've decided to color in all of these little wood veneers yellow with a marker, and it just brings that yellow around the page and ties it in with the rest of the layout. It's a small thing, but for me it keeps that yellow flower from grabbing too much attention and instead still blending into the background. Now onto my scattering and splattering. So all the little tiny bits and pieces I've already added would be my scattering, and I do splattering usually with two things. One, gold Nuvo to dot around the page in place of enamel dots, and then some gold ink spray to just splatter all the way around the entire design. That kind of helps to blend it in with the white space in the background. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, bye!